Commander Vrell'nax had been a soldier for 63 cycles. He had fought on 17 different worlds, commanded 4 fleets, and earned more decorations than his ceremonial sash could hold. But nothing, absolutely nothing, had prepared him for humans. The briefing should have been his first warning. General Korthvan stood at the holographic display with that smug expression military leaders wear when they think they know everything. "Primitive species," he'd announced, waving one of his forearms dismissively. "They barely achieved faster-than-light travel 2 decades ago. Their weapons are crude, their tactics predictable, and their surrender is inevitable." Vrell'nax remembered nodding. He remembered thinking it would be over in a month, maybe 2 if the humans were particularly stubborn. That was 34 years ago. Now, here he was, sitting across from Ambassador Marcus Webb at the newly constructed peace station orbiting the planet they called Europa. The human looked unremarkable, honestly. Average height, graying hair, wearing one of those strange fabric coverings they insisted on despite perfectly adequate environmental controls. He was smiling, which Vrell'nax had learned could either be a good sign or a terrible one, depending entirely on context. "So," Webb said, leaning back in his chair with casual confidence, "I hear you wanted to talk about how we managed to hold you off for 3.5 decades. Vrell'nax felt his third eyelid twitch, an involuntary response to stress he thought he'd conquered years ago. "The coalition leadership believes," he began carefully, "that understanding your species might prevent future conflicts. Translation: you're terrified of us and want to know what you missed in the initial assessment." Webb's smile widened. "Fair enough. Where should I start?" "The beginning would be adequate." Webb laughed, a short barking sound that Vrell'nax had learned indicated genuine amusement rather than aggression. "The beginning. Okay. You want to know what your first mistake was? You assumed logic." "Explain." "Your entire battle strategy, your whole approach to warfare, is based on rational calculations. Cost versus benefit. Acceptable losses. Strategic value. You fight wars like you're solving mathematics problems." Webb leaned forward, his expression sharpening. "Humans don't do that. We can't actually. Our brains are wired differently." Vrell'nax pulled up his personal datapad, ready to take notes. After decades of losing soldiers to human unpredictability, he wanted every detail. "Continue. Take the Battle of Titan Station. You remember that one. Remember it?" Vrell'nax had commanded that disaster personally. 3 full battalions against a single undermanned human outpost. The tactical computers had given him a 97% probability of victory. Instead, he'd retreated with less than half his forces intact. "The station was a supply depot," Vrell'nax said quietly. "No strategic value. Your people should have evacuated. Should have preserved your personnel for more important conflicts." "Should have." Webb nodded. "Except Captain Diana Reeves was in command, and her kid brother worked maintenance on that station. When we told her to pull back, you know what she said?" Vrell'nax waited. "She said, and I quote, 'Over my dead body.'" Webb paused. Turns out she meant it literally. She rigged the entire western sector to explode, then broadcast a station-wide message giving anyone who wanted to evacuate 60 seconds. Most of her crew stayed. They held you off for 8 hours using maintenance equipment and improvised explosives. That's insane. That's humanity. Webb stood, walking to the viewport that showed Earth hanging in the distance like a blue jewel. "You want to know our secret, Commander? We're not smarter than you. We're not stronger. Our technology still lags behind yours in many areas. But we have something your species lost somewhere along the evolutionary path." "What's that?" Webb turned back, and his expression held something Vrell'nax couldn't quite identify. Pride? Sadness? Maybe both. "We're absolutely, completely, magnificently irrational when it comes to the things we love. Our families, our friends, our homes, our ideals. You can calculate the strategic value of a supply depot, but you can't calculate what a human will do to protect their brother. You can't predict how far someone will go to defend a principle they believe in, even when the math says they should surrender." Vrell'nax felt a chill settle in his midsection. Understanding, perhaps, or dread. "The war could have continued," Webb said softly. "We both know that. But here's the thing about irrational devotion. It goes both ways. We fight like demons to protect what we love, but we also recognize when fighting serves no purpose except pride. We can be pragmatic when we choose to be. So when your coalition finally offered genuine peace terms instead of demands for surrender, we accepted them. Because, Commander, we'd rather be irrational about building something than destroying it. Vrell'nax sat in silence for several long moments, processing Webb's words. His tactical training screamed that this information should be classified, analyzed, weaponized somehow. But that was exactly the kind of thinking that had cost the coalition hundreds of thousands of soldiers. I need to understand something, Vrell'nax said finally, his voice rougher than intended. The assault on New Bangalore. We had orbital superiority. We had ground forces outnumbering yours 5-1. You had no reinforcements coming. Every rational calculation said you would negotiate. Webb's jaw tightened slightly. Instead, we sent every civilian into the underground shelters and turned the entire city into a fighting position. Your casualties were catastrophic. 60% of your defending forces. The city was leveled. And for what? We took the planet anyway 3 months later. Did you though? Webb asked quietly. Vrell'nax blinked, confusion replacing certainty. We held New Bangalore for 2 years. Sure. And how many soldiers did you lose holding it? How many resources did you pour into controlling a population that sabotaged your equipment, fed false intelligence, and made every day a nightmare? We didn't need to win that battle, Commander. We needed to make you understand that occupying human territory would cost more than you could afford to pay. The cold feeling in Vrell'nax's midsection intensified. That was deliberate? You sacrificed your own people as a psychological tactic? No. Webb's voice hardened. We fought because New Bangalore was our home, and we don't give up our homes without bleeding for them. The psychological impact on your forces was just a bonus we noticed. See the difference? You think we planned some grand strategy. We didn't. We just refused to quit, and you couldn't comprehend why. Vrell'nax pulled up another file on his datapad, hands trembling slightly. Lieutenant Parker, one of your fighter pilots. She was injured, her ship damaged beyond repair. She had ejection capability. Instead, she rammed her vessel into our command carrier, killing herself and 700 of my people. I knew Emily Parker, Webb said softly. Good kid. Wanted to be a teacher after her service ended. She had a fiancé waiting for her back on Mars. Then why? Because her sensor data showed that carrier was 3 minutes from firing on a colony ship full of evacuating families. 40,000 civilians, Commander, most of them children. Webb's eyes met Vrell'nax's directly. You want to understand humans? That's the key. Emily Parker did the math differently than you. She saw one life, hers, versus 40,000 lives, theirs. The answer was obvious to her. That's not rational. No, Webb agreed. It's love. It's sacrifice. It's every illogical, beautiful, terrible thing that makes us human. Your species optimized for survival. Efficiency. Logic. Somewhere in your evolution, you trimmed away the messy emotions that make people do ridiculous things. You became perfect soldiers. And perfect soldiers don't know how to fight imperfect humans who'll throw themselves into a black hole if it means their kids get to live. Webb returned to his seat, suddenly looking much older. You know what finally convinced your coalition to negotiate genuine peace terms? It wasn't military defeat. You could have kept fighting for decades. It was when your analysts finally ran the numbers and realized the truth. Vrell'nax waited, though he already suspected what was coming. Humans would never stop. Ever. You could conquer every planet, destroy every fleet, kill 99% of us, and that last 1% would still be building bombs in basements and teaching their children to resist. We're too stubborn to know when we're beaten, too emotional to accept defeat, too irrational to surrender even when surrender makes sense. Webb spread his hands. We're exhausting to fight because we don't follow the rules of engagement your species considers normal. So what now? Vrell'nax asked. This peace we've arranged, is it genuine? Or another tactic? Webb considered the question seriously. Here's what I can tell you, Commander. Humans are irrational about the things we love, and we've decided we'd rather love this peace than hate you. We're choosing to be optimistic, to believe cooperation serves us better than conflict. But if you threaten our families, our homes, our freedom again. He paused. Well, you've got 3 decades of experience showing you exactly what we'll do. Vrell'nax closed his datapad, a gesture of finality. I came here expecting tactical analysis, strategic insights, things I could quantify and report. And instead you got philosophy and feelings? Webb smiled again, but it was gentler now. Welcome to dealing with humanity, Commander. We're a contradictory mess of logic and emotion, and we wouldn't have it any other way. Standing, Vrell'nax extended his primary arm in the human gesture of respect he'd learned. Webb shook it firmly. I will relay this to the coalition leadership, Vrell'nax said, though I suspect they'll find it as frustrating as I do. Frustration keeps you cautious, Webb replied. Caution keeps the peace. I'll take frustration over warfare any day. As Vrell'nax departed the station, heading back to his ship and the long report he'd need to file, one thought dominated his mind. The coalition had spent 34 years trying to defeat humanity through superior strategy and firepower. They'd failed because they'd been fighting the wrong war entirely. You can't beat an opponent who refuses to accept loss. You can't conquer people who love their freedom more than they fear death. You can't calculate your way past pure, stubborn, magnificent human irrationality. The coalition would need to remember that. Because Ambassador Webb was right about one thing. Humans would fight like demons if threatened again. That somehow made them even more terrifying. If this story entertained or taught you something, please like and subscribe to our channel. It really helps us grow and bring you more stories like this. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next story.